All right. Good evening, internet. Good evening, viewers.
Yeah.
Good evening, online subscribers, friends, wherever you're watching us from, all over the world. Welcome again to this YouTube channel. Today is a little bit different. It's
Yep.
me and my son, Mr. Billy,
Yeah. Father son duo.
and father-son duo. This is going to be a killer. Could have even done better with Madsen, but she freaked out.
Make it official.
So we are going to start off and welcome viewers once more. And we are going to have a conversation today about the ongoing events in the Middle East. Those who follow the political circle or the news are aware that we are at war. The United States, Israel attacked Iran in a move that is perhaps aimed at a regime change. It is a war that is ongoing right now, day 5 as we talk. Iran as a new leader. First of all, Bill, what do you make of this war, and what do you think about it? What is your feeling about it?
Well, that's a good question. So I think there's a lot at stake here. It's a very messy pot. And you can see almost from all sides that you have, the Iranian regime that was pre-existing, and perhaps because we live in America, we're a little bit distant from it. So some of the news that we get from it is not necessarily the same as those that are living in Iran and experiencing, what it's like to live in that regime, right? So we had recently the late supreme leader of Iran killed, confirmed he was killed, and that set off quite a few things. So Iran is predominantly Shia Muslims, right? And so they believe in martyrdom, right? So I don't think this is going to be a conflict, judging based off of what happened, that resolves very easily and cleanly just because the supreme leader was taken. You have supporters on his side, and you also have people who feel as though they were oppressed and strongly, restricted by what they could do living in Iran. And then you have people now in the diaspora who've left, ancient Persia, Iran, and they live here, and some of them are even celebrating that, the supreme leader is out of power, right? Now, the difficulty here is you still have the military, which support the supreme leader and are in control of everything that's happening right now. So there hasn't been a full political shift yet, right? And then you have the Israeli conflict, where Iran came in kind of in alliance with the Palestinians, who were obviously oppressed by, what's going on with the Israeli conflict. And now you have this very profound issue where, the GCC countries, are kind of on a strict guideline, because now you have to choose a side. And the GCC, everything from Iran to Saudi Arabia to Yemen, those that provide the most rich resource, fuel, oil, through the strait, are now being clamped down. And so that's going to affect the economies of Asia. That's going to affect the US economy, right? Because of lack of access to that oil. And that's going to affect themselves, because in exchange for oil, what does the Middle East get? Food and water, which are not native, huge productions in their own native countries. So you have this boiling conflict now, where we might have China get involved. We might have Russia get involved. We clearly have the US siding with Israel getting involved, and that's what I think about the current situation.
Very good. And you summed it very well when you talked about the elimination of the Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei
Yeah.
Being taken out. But interesting that this morning
Yeah.
we woke up to the news of the Supreme Council of Iran electing his son, his elder son,
Yeah.
Muqtada, as the supreme leader.
Right.
What do you think is going to be perhaps the direction that the son might take? Is he probably going to take the direction the dad was leading the Iranian people, or you think he's going to try to compromise, or you think he's going to come up with a middle ground?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I know Trump is not playing. Clearly, by his actions this past week, he's not playing. He gave the warning, they refused, and now we're left with the situation. I don't know too much about his son, and I don't claim to know everything. But what I do know is, in true martyrdom, there's going to be a strike back, right? So now, who is going to get struck? Because we have Dubai. Let's talk about Dubai. Dubai is in a situation where they're neutral to the conflict. You know, Dubai is in a situation where it's a very expat, foreigner-friendly business, commerce, entrepreneurial society.
So
Right.
is Kuwait.
So is Kuwait, right? And so for these people who are living there, who are not natives of that region, where do they go? Now that there's a conflict in the Middle East, do they leave? Right? What happens in 8-9 months when the strait that is delivering the food and water, they get closed off and they can't get food or water for any price?
Actually, that Iran declared late last night that they've closed the Strait of Hormuz,
Yeah.
where the ships, pass going to the east. So that one, I saw this morning, later today, the Americans issued a statement saying they are going to protect the ships passing through. But you're not going to protect a dozen ships that are going through the sea. And you know, how many trips are you going to do back and forth protecting each ship with what, F-16, F-15? That's is not doable.
It's a complicated task.
It's a complicated task, and that area, remember, is also infested with Yemen Houthis, who are hostile to Americans and Israel.
Yeah.
And they have also promised to sink any ship that attempts to cross through that strait.
Right.
You know, regardless of who is protecting them or who is not. So that further complicates if you look at the complex Middle East, Asian, Western trade, complicated. It makes it a complex issue. Now, what do you think about the economic impact that this whole fiasco might cause the Middle Eastern countries and the far Asian countries following this fiasco?
Yeah, so I think this is something that I can speak on a little bit better, specifically because, I trade and I look at these indices. So back to Dubai. So Dubai is very important because what happened was, when we got off of the gold standard, we made an agreement with Dubai to use the petrodollar, right, and strictly receive all payments, right, whether that's from the Japanese, who 70% of their oil they get from the Middle East, the Chinese, who 60+% of their oil they get from the Middle East, right? These countries rely economically on the Middle East functioning and delivering oil across each one of these straits to them. If it's closed, now we're talking about empires that will collapse, right? Not only that, but in the U.S., the main issue that we're going to face is because the Dubai is very responsible for the top quarter of stocks, specifically tech stocks. They invest a lot of their money into the U.S. stock market in exchange for, the protection and also using the petrodollar, right? The U.S. dollar to receive funds for oil. So if we don't have this anymore, this creates a lot of tension now for the U.S. economy, which might, at this point, be close to recessionary factors. We might have to experience some type of drawback, because a lot of these tech companies are investing very heavily in AI, but they're not receiving revenue for the research and development of the products that they're producing to the expense that they're spending. They're spending 5-10 times the multiple of the revenue that they're receiving for this AI stuff, right? So we're going to see a lot of pressure, downward pressure on these tech companies, which control a majority of the stock market here in the US, as well as for the energy sector that the Middle East is responsible to supply the rest of the world in, right? We get a lot of grain and we get that wheat specifically from Russia, right? But Russia also needs oil from the Middle East. So what happens when they don't get to get oil, right, and the rest of the world don't get to get grain? We might have factors in the Middle East where we're experiencing famine, right? Because they're not able to get water, which is very important for survival, wheat, which is who doesn't eat grain, right? To that sector. So we're in a very complicated scenario where not only is Iran going to suffer from this, taking on this, war against the world, but they may in fact also have very large allies that we haven't seen yet, i.e. China and Russia, right? Because they're reliant on them as much as the U.S. is reliant on their financing with the dollar. So all of these could really create a lot of downward pressure on the stock market, and the global economy will suffer as a result, because without the oil, without the food on every side, you're going to experience a lot of strain on production in each economy in drastic ways. So we may see some massive bankruptcies, some foreclosures, right? We might see a lot of drawdown that is unrealized yet. And that's what I'm expecting for the next
Very good
year.
analysis, Bill. Somebody said on the comment section I was reading when I was doing that documentary about
Oh yeah,
Iran. I think the first day I did it.
yeah.
Somebody did say that Russia is a paper tiger.
Paper tiger.
Yeah, they never saved Nicolas Maduro when the Americans took him out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do to Iran? Can you perhaps comment about that? I know they are at war. They've been at war for the last 4 years with Ukraine.
Yeah.
A war that clearly has bogged them down. Perhaps you could talk about maybe 2 million men dead.
Yeah.
For the last 4 years, and clearly with no end in sight.
Right.
I don't think Russia is in any position right now to back anybody militarily.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. They are badly hit. Right now they are even in the market hiring mercenaries, paying people to come and give them a short training to fight for them. But what kind of war can you fight with two weeks training?
Yeah.
And then you're thrown to the front line. You're as useless as not being there.
Yeah.
So China, we don't know, might be providing, I think, Iran with a little bit of intelligence and maybe satellite images and probably perhaps even military strategies.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. I don't think they want to be seen in public.
Yeah.
But I think they are doing it in the backside, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
We have seen the only person that we have seen supporting Israel openly is Hezbollah, based in Hezbollah is a terrorist group based in Lebanon,
Yeah.
Beirut. I saw them firing a barrage of missiles yesterday towards Israel, and Israel immediately after 2 hours responded with a barrage of combined air missiles and everything. A factor that probably left them devastated. The only other people that I've seen talk about Iran in support is the Houthis, from Yemen. That is another terrorist group supporting Iran. But perhaps the most chilling statement this morning that I heard was Israel did put on notice the young son of Ali Ayatollah Khamenei, the deceased, the son now who took over. They did tell him this morning that he's also not indispensable. He's in the line of death, along with whoever who is backing him. Of course, he was chosen by the Supreme Council that was surrounding Ayatollah Khamenei.
Yeah.
But I think they're also probably gonna try to target him. But today, again, Iran released a barrage of missiles to Israel, and we don't know what the impact was. Maybe by tomorrow, probably we will know. But my other question to you was, now Iran has attacked most Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
Perhaps that some of them, like you said, are neutral in this war. They were not supporting it.
Yeah.
They were not for it. They are not in it. They are not supporting any side. But Iran has gone to an extent of firing missiles. So we have a record of about 4 or 5 countries that have closed the American embassies in their countries because of being attacked.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact of that is going to be?
It could be huge. We are really on the pulse of watching perhaps what could be World War III unfold, right? Because now, because of the Middle Eastern countries being in such a close proximity to Israel and Iran, you have to pick a side, and defense has to be number one. Iran has a specific advantage, and that's because, sure, their water supply is at risk. Their oil supply is not going to be sent out. Perhaps there could be sanctions coming in the future, but they are in a spot where, unless you're the U.S. Navy, which is the biggest Navy in the whole world, right? Do you make the decision of launching a nuclear attack to flatten Iran, knowing that there's innocence throughout the whole region, right? Can you do that as the U.S.? Can you justify a war right now with Iran that maybe a lot of people right now in the U.S., us even probably, we feel as though we can't justify that war, right? Sure, maybe some of us would want to protect Israel because we side with Israel, but is that something that we want to get involved in? And the issue is that war is very expensive, to get these strikes across, even to supply Israel with what they need to protect themselves, to guard the Middle Eastern countries is going to cost a lot of money, which means they're going to have to inflate the dollar, create money, and spend it for the military that is going to service, clearing up the situation on the Middle East. Or instead of a nuclear attack, right, which would obliterate and have long-term effects on that region, right? Do we put boots on the ground? Can you justify putting 500,000, 2 million troops in Iran right now to get this situation handled? Can we do that? It would be a lot of money spent that would probably not only risk the lives of Americans, right? It'd risk the lives of innocent Iranians, right? And it would also put heavy inflationary factors on an already not good scenario, considering the GCC countries and how they're responsible for delivering oil exports outside. So right now, Iran's best strategy is probably figuring out who they need to talk to get this handled. But I don't think that they're willing to work well with the US right now. We may be in a very dirty situation.
Yeah, someone did say that they know they are going down, but regardless of how they are going down, they want to go down with everybody else. Meaning they want to mess it as much as possible.
Take it as far as possible.
Before they figure out anything. That is interesting. Boots on the ground, I think that is a little bit far-fetched. It might not. It might have the opposite effect of what this objective was. I think perhaps what Israel considered here regime change was Israel and the United States is a quick decapitation of the Ayatollah,
Yeah.
which has happened, but obviously nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Nobody's even talking about regime change in Iran. So to me, that strategy was not effective. It tells you that it was not about an individual here.
Yep.
Because the individual you wanted eliminated is not there now, but nobody is talking about it. If it really mattered, everybody could be talking about regime change right now. Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that they chose their son today to lead them tells you that their mindset is a little bit different than what we think in the Western world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going forward, I think it is in a very interesting scenario. And Israel did this indicate that they were not able to do this alone. I think they realized in June when they attacked Israel that Iran was not Iran was not a walkover.
Yeah.
So I think they drafted in the United States to help them out. I don't know how far they will go with this war, but clearly seems to affect everything dynamically in the whole world trade-wise.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is a concern not only to even the United States, the amount of money they are going to spend, the amount of equipment, men, and the trade that they are going to lose and everything to everybody. It is an unprecedented war in my view, coming at the wrong time. Now there's talk about the arming the Kurds in the north to cause a revolution. I think maybe they realize this killing of Ayatollah, it might not bring about the regime change that they wanted.
Yeah.
So I heard this morning them talking about, the Kurds to the north. The Kurds are usually nomadic people. They are independent, but they are not. They're both in Iran and Iraq, the Kurds. So they kind of move from one place to the other. But they've been fighting Iraq and fighting Iran all the same. They don't get. They are different. They are not. They're Muslims, yes, but they're not like Sunnis or not like Farsi or not like Shiites. They're just Kurds. So I think somebody's talking about now arming them to try and cause a revolution in Iran. You think that is gonna work?
you pose a good question, and I actually have a counter question. I don't know if I have an answer.
Yes.
But does this, because obviously Iran is an Islamic state,
Yes.
does this now kind of encourage or bring in the other Islamic states to participate in the conflict? Because Shiites, there's 10% of the Muslim population in the world. A majority of Muslims are Sunni, right, which don't believe in the same
That's right.
doctrine, and Iran has decades under the supreme leader that recently passed. And they have this idea about the West specifically, and how they need to approach the West in order to defend themselves. There's a chance of them very much disliking the West, specifically the U.S., for what we've done in the Middle East. Is this a conflict big enough that, that they can actually inspire now the U.S. forces to look at Iran as a subject that may have access to what they used before in the Bush era, weapons of mass destruction, right? To really put boots on the ground, or to put more serious firepower in Iran, right, against them. Does this now unite, Muslims of every region to participate and voice their concerns on this issue? I don't know. I don't know.
One thing perhaps that you can point out that is clear is that let us use Iraq, for example.
Yeah.
The United States under Operation Restore Desert Hope, Operation Restore Desert Hope. That was the first operation that the United States carried against Iran under Saddam.
Yeah.
When they were accusing Saddam of having weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
Well, that went on. They never found any mass destruction.
We didn't find weapons of mass destruction.
Now, Saddam was hanged.
Yeah.
His son Uday and Qusay were killed.
Yeah.
In that mix. And what became of Iraq after that? Iraq became a nightmare.
Yeah.
The oil that perhaps was being anticipated that will be available was never available.
Yeah.
Iraq broke into factions of fighters and became ungovernable. Now, using that example, I don't think, if you don't understand the history of the Middle East very well, and Iraq's case, using Iraq's case for Iran, to be honest with you, I don't think this is going to work very well.
No.
We're likely to see perhaps competition between parties, between Sunni, different factions now, fighting for power, wrestling for power.
Yeah.
Just like it was in Iraq, because in Iraq there was the Ba'ath party that belonged to Saddam Hussein, the men from Tikrit, where Saddam came from, and the people who were opposed to him.
Yeah.
And the other different parties that were supporting them and supporting Saddam. Those was parties that were fighting. So I honestly don't see it any different in Iran. It probably might end up being the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. stepping in could pose a lot of systemic issues if it's not fully handled and supported by the people as much as by the political regime that rules over in the aftermath.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's really anybody's guess as to what would happen even if all of these leaders in charge right now are eliminated.
Yes.
Right? Because we may just cause that same cycle of a faction breaking into multiple different pieces.
Yep.
And everybody now competing for power.
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
as a result, the people suffer. Right?
People suffer. What do you think about the European countries have been fairly quiet on this issue. Nobody has talked. I have not seen any statement from Germany,
Yeah.
Britain. None of the European countries have issued any statement.
And they're close.
And they're very close. They're actually more affected than we are. But none of them has talked.
Yeah.
How do you read that?
I read it as they're waiting for America to move first, right? Because we're facing a very difficult situation where we might have higher powers step up, the highest of powers, China, Russia, and the US, right? So when you're the big brother, US, who do the little brothers make moves first, right? Can they really speak on what's going to happen? Can they even fund a war like this? Do they want to participate? Probably not.
They could talk whether they're in favor or they're not in favor of this war.
But would the talk result in any type of action? Can they actually say something without having issues with the US?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Yeah, but also keeping quiet. What does it mean? Does it mean you are an accomplice or you are not? Or what? How do you read that? What does it portend?
In optics, it looks like it's complicit to the crime. You know, it seems like because you're not saying anything, that you're just as guilty, right? It's like being a bystander to somebody else being bullied. And then the bully is fighting the person being bullied at the same time just as hard to their capacity.
Yeah.
Right? You have a serious issue now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I would like for them to step up and really claim and figure out what we're finna do, because, I mean, the situation is scary as close as it is there as far as it is here. Maybe even worse.
Perhaps
Right?
even worse. They're much closer. The impact is much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how long do you think, in your view, will this war last? Perhaps weeks, months, years? What is your estimation? What do you read into this?
See, I remember when COVID happened, and we're all sitting here, and then Russia stepped into Ukraine. You were like, Russia is going to, they're going to be flattened. It's over. They can't fund this war. They can't reach into the Ukraine, knowing how well the Ukraine is tied to everybody else in the West. That's not. It's quick job. I don't think this is a quick job either. Personally, I never thought that war was going to resolve fast, and it still has not. Right? I think this one is even more complicated and may last years. Months I don't think is going to resolve, because again, it will take a good, year for the effects of the water and food issues going to the GCC countries, the Middle East, right? As well as, the oncoming attacks between Iran and Israel, to sort themselves out, as well as Iran's attacks to the other countries in the surrounding area that they have, conflict with. This could be a much longer task force than assumed, and there really is no quick resolve of this issue. So for me, I think we're actually going to have to look at this in a longer term than anybody's willing to talk about. All right, what do you think?
I agree with you on that, but perhaps how long can the question here would be, how long can Iran sustain this war? Do you think it has the capability of sustaining the onslaught led by the two big guns, Israel and the United States, for a long time? Iran has thousands and thousands of missiles, they say, but with the economic blockade of them perhaps not being able to sell oil anywhere,
Yeah.
and other countries in the Middle East not being able to ship their oil outside,
Yeah.
Don't you think this is gonna quicken maybe a deal? Perhaps Iran will probably back down and say, "Hey, look, let's talk."
Yeah.
Perhaps even to lessen the tension a little bit and get a breather a little bit, because it's gonna get to a point where they're gonna feel suffocated by this war. Don't you think?
I think that, yes, I think because there will be unparalleled constraints on the countries here in the GCC, Iran included, that this might end up being pushed a certain way. But we have to remember, when it comes to measuring out the budget of an Iran compared to the U.S. is a power that is capable of utilizing the IMF, the World Bank, printing their own money, right? Expanding the credit supply to take on a war of this size. They're willing to do whatever it takes money-wise, right? And in fact, maybe they're incentivized rather poorly to take on this type of situation and stretch it out, right? Because that would mean that they're spending money, right? And that's very important to sustain an economy, though it comes at the cost of blood, right? We're talking more so about how much is a country or nation willing to do for control. And when you're talking about a man's desire for control, it might even be stronger than a man's desire for money, right? So this budget is much bigger. What Iran is desiring in terms of the political regime is to assume control, right, of their entire situation, from their nation to those that they think are being oppressed, right? And that's a whole different scenario. You are willing to go much farther for control than you would for money. So that's why I think this whole process actually elongates, is that, and a serious concern for mine, which, God forbid it doesn't happen, is, some type of terrorism infiltration in another country, even the West included, right?
True. That is something that you brought out also, that was almost to, it had escaped my mind, that we're probably gonna see an increase right now in individual terrorism.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, funded by Hezbollah and all these Iranian hardcore
Supporters.
supporters. Perhaps that is why you see the whole Middle Eastern countries, there is no aircraft leaving or landing right now.
Yeah.
People are afraid because they don't know where a missile is going to come. They don't know who's going to step in a plane and start screaming like a crazy person,
You don't know.
You don't know. So this, it is an unprecedented situation, but we hope, to be honest with you, that there is going to be some sense of goodwill from both parties. Notwithstanding, we are looking at, sometimes when you're fighting fundamentalists, there's no end in sight. I mean, this is a war for them that probably they say is in the Bible. They would justify like that and tell the people it's in the Bible. So when you're fighting people like this, you have to be very careful,
right?
Because there are people who probably not stop at nothing.
Exactly.
And I think Iran has also been blessed with plenty of oil. I think they've sold a lot of oil in the world. They're well funded. Money-wise, I don't think they are short of cash. They have drones. Their missiles, long-range missiles of up to 2,500 miles.
Wow.
That's like from here to California.
That's far.
That is very far. That is very far. It means from Tehran they can literally hit Oman, Dubai, Egypt,
Yeah.
People within that range.
Yeah.
So that is also another question of concern. But perhaps let's sum up this discussion by probably what are the lessons are we learning from this kind of war? What lessons have you learned from this war?
One of the lessons I've definitely learned is that war is not necessary. It's not necessary. If this could have been resolved diplomatically prior to, perhaps we wouldn't have to go this far. That would have been excellent, right? If any of the warning signs had culminated and trickled to a decision that would have benefited enough parties, then perhaps, the likes of people who were affected, whether in Israel or in Iran or even anywhere else in that region, their lives could have been saved, right? We were talking about a place that has people who did not want to participate in this war at all, who are now under threat or have been killed already, right? And that is an unnecessary cost. And nobody's lives should be at stake when it comes to making political decisions. But in a world that's unfair, these things are the reality. And so I wish that this could be expedited to a way that would service the people first. And it's very sad to see that when you don't have that alignment between a nation and their leaders and the populace, the general people, when you don't have that alignment, you have these issues that come across borders. They jump out, right? And I wish it never had to go this far. And so, yeah, I think war is an evil thing, and some people may say sometimes it's necessary, but I just wish it was not. Another lesson that I've learned is that the global economy can be severely impacted by even small countries like Iran, right? We're dealing with what could possibly be a massive, not only attack to the economy, but to different sectors that if there were any other conflicts that came across anytime in the near future, perhaps we won't be able to deal with them, because we're putting a lot of energy towards this. And so I pray for those who are affected, whether here or far, that people can make it out of this conflict enough that they can come to a conclusion that would be reasonable. That's really what I pray for.
Very good, very well put. And also, war is expensive. People die.
Yeah.
And war takes people backwards. It throws you centuries and centuries back.
Yeah.
Before you rebuild to where you were. So, if there were to be any options before we resort to war, I would rather we go for that. Otherwise, war is the last resort, and not the first option that one would opt to jump into.
Yeah.
Especially in these modern times where time counts, everything counts, trade counts, businesses count, everything counts. There is no reason for war. I would give an example. Russia has been bogged down for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Today, there is no end in sight in that war. Millions and millions of people dead. We are putting it at 2 million men. Endless equipment, endless infrastructure, bridges, people's lives destroyed, no work, no nothing. It leaves you many years behind. So if it can be avoided, it would be a good idea. Do you have any questions before we have our closing remarks, perhaps?
I don't actually have any questions right now. It's a situation that you have to watch close.
True. True.
Because every day something could change.
Yes.
The outcomes that we're working towards.
Yes.
But yeah, I really don't know what people are going to do. So I don't have any questions yet.
It is. No, I don't have any question, but it's day by day.
Yeah.
But I just hope that sense will prevail.
Yeah.
For all participants of this war to one day wake up and say, hey, why are we going this far?
Yeah.
Why don't we sit down and see where we can meet genuinely without necessarily having resorting into war?
Violence, yeah.
Yeah, violence as such. That would be my assessment. And what does this portend for the young generations coming up? You're putting them in debt. This war is going to be paid by the young generation coming up, right?
Right.
Is that what we want to see as an older generation passing on the burden of debt to our young ones?
Yeah.
Your closing remarks, and then we're gonna end up.
Yeah. I never think it's a good thing. There's many people online who have posted and told about their historical situations growing up in Iran and then escaping now maybe even to America, and speaking about how drastically they were affected by continuous violence, right? It doesn't make a person grow up better to grow up in war. It makes them strong, for overcoming it and then finding a place where now that maybe perhaps they can build a business. Iranians are very intelligent. Israelis are very intelligent. These are two people of nations that have contributed to many great things in the world, right? It's just a shame that pinning them up against each other, whether for religious reasons, whether for other reasons, that now we have to go this far, and the kids who are growing up in these regions or out of these regions affected by this, or maybe not even from these regions, have to see the cost of war now because of the problems that have arisen. So I don't think that's a very good thing to grow up seeing. Many people are fugitives and escape from countries that could not protect them, and that's sad. We have to build nations that are strong enough to withhold their firepower, right? But smart enough to come to decisions that lead to peace. And I think that's the lesson in all of this.
Very well put. Thank you very much, Bill, for participating in this edition.
Yeah.
Viewers, we'll come to the end of this edition. Thank you for following us wherever you are, wherever your time zone is, and thank you for tuning in. Watch this video to the very end, subscribe, share, and comments. By comment I mean positive comments.
Yep.
And tell us your views. What do you think? What do you think can be done to improve the conversation or stuff like that? We'll be glad to hear from you, viewers. And with those few remarks, we're gonna come to the end of this video. And I thank my Big Boy for participating.
Yeah, we had a good time.
We had a good time.
Yeah, I hope this brought in your perspective on, the conflict going on in the Middle East.
Yes.
And pray for those that are affected, and as well as, reach out to the powers that be that you can contact
Yes.
to make sure your voice is heard. And just make sure you subscribe and comment below your thoughts, feedback, and we'll see what we can do in the future.
Thank you and have a good night.
Yep.
Come to the end of this video.
Take care.
Bye-bye.